August 15th, 2023. This is the S&P 500 E-Futures Mini on the 2000 tick chart on the NinjaTrader 8 platform. Go down to the descriptions below. You can see where I timestamped all the places I saw setups as well as where I took my trades. There was only one. There was some economic news today, which was the core retail sales, and it came out at around 5:30 Pacific Standard, which is about right here. And you could argue that it caused the market to rally, but it didn't really seem to have that big a reaction in the overall scheme of things. And overall, it seemed like there was a big gradual sell-off. I only took 3 trades today. Unfortunately, the first trade was a winner, and unfortunately, the next 2 trades were losers. After the second loss, I just had to kind of stop trading. Most of the trade setups I found out came a little bit after waiting for a good 3 hours. Kind of came in this section, this region, and there were not too many setups I could find. There was only a couple setups I saw in the beginning, and then maybe one in the middle. And unfortunately, this looks like a pretty good choppy price action where you could see good setups, but in this region, I actually didn't find that many good second entries or high probability trades. I'm going to go through the trades pretty quickly. Video is a little bit late. I had to just kind of step out and right after work or right after the trading day, and I had to get some errands done, so this video is coming out kind of late. This is the pre-market highs marked here and the pre-market lows. For the most part, it looked like the pre-market lows were being respected because it bounced twice and it moved back up, but I don't trade the pre-market. I drew this red channel coming down and another channel kind of matching at the bottom, or this trend line. It looked like prices were going to respect or stay within this big channel, but I didn't give it too much. I didn't take too many trades or see too many trades that offered opportunities off that big line. And then in between, I saw a lot of little consolidation areas. So first setup I saw was a new high here, right after the open, made a first entry long and then a second entry long. Now this is actually a possible trade. It's a very good signal bar right here, but it is the break of the shortened trend channel. So it broke, it already made a new high, and it tested the extreme. So it already tested the extreme here, and it already tested the extreme a second time. When it came down, push one, push up, two push up, I was a little leery, not sure if the EMA was going to hold, but this is a potential trade for a quick scalp, and it looked like it would have worked. And prices continue moving. There's a new high here you can count because it resets. First entry long, second entry long, and resets. First entry long, second entry long. But this would be the signal bar you're taking it off of, and it's below the EMA, so I didn't like that. This is a new low here. It's a first entry short, and technically a second entry short. Again, this is a terrible signal bar to go short off of. Plus, it is on top of the EMA. I did see a new high here. Saw first entry long, pull back, and then second entry long. So this is what it looks like in real time. The signal bar is okay, but here you're already kind of testing the lows of this localized region. I thought I saw a trading range here and it's breaking out, and there's a failed breakout here, and then it came back in. It didn't quite reach the top of the range and it came right back down. The top of the range could actually have been a little bit closer to right here, but I wasn't sure at the time. So this could have been a failed breakout pullback. Again, there's a good strong bearish bar coming down, and it kind of closed this signal bar, or the signal bar for the failure. It doesn't really matter, the signal bar, but it just felt like the trade was already made when it came down. And I was a little reluctant, even though it had good EMA rejection. So you'd have to take it on the engulfing. And when I witnessed this close, it kind of closed down here. The trade would have been up here if I felt more confident. If this had been more bearish, I think I would have been more confident taking the trade. But it kind of pulled back at the last minute on this candle, and it flashed down. And then, as you can see, it looks like it would have worked out pretty well. And prices continue chopping down, pulls back, comes up, tests this red trend channel coming down. This green channel actually doesn't exist yet. Kind of pulls back down. You have new high, first entry long, second entry long, third entry long. So there's no real setup here. First break of this shortened trend channel coming down. It tests the lows, continues down, hops around. So I draw this green channel first, and then I matched this lower bottom here. I actually had it a little bit higher one time because I wasn't sure where it was. Thought it might have actually been up here with some overshoots. Then I didn't like the overshoots, so I tried to collect the price action. It looked like it overshoot here. continue moving down. Then it clearly looked like it kind of had two tests here. That's where I eventually dragged this guy down to about right here, where it kind of looked like it had a good two touches here. Prices continue moving. There are second entries here, but there aren't very good high probability setups. Too congested, too wicky, because there's like a lot of doji candles here. I didn't like that. Comes up, tests this red channel coming down again, or this red trend line. And remember, this red trend line, I wasn't really sure and confident that the bottom was right here. So I just kind of, for sure, there's a resistance here and you might take a short off of it. But other than that, I don't really know that it's in the channel yet. I thought it was maybe in this green channel as it continue moving. This is where I actually saw a decent setup here, and I tried to take this trade, but I missed out. There's a new high here. The first entry long pulls back, second entry long. Now, on the second entry long, it also fails on this candle. So what happens also here is you have a localized low, you have a first entry short, and on this candle pulls up and comes back down. It confirms a second entry short. So actually, I was playing the failed second entry long, and when this one flashed up, it came back down. I said, I want to get in on this trade. I jumped in too late, even though it was pushing down toward the localized bottom. I'll admit it is a little bit riskier. And I thought, okay, this is a trading range right here, this blue range right here. It's probably a failed breakout, pullback. And I thought it was going to continue down because the overall market sentiment is very bearish right now. So I was feeling that it has enough power to push down because the EMA is also keeping prices below it. There has been some violations, some pushes above, but for the most part, it is pushing down. I thought it was a failed breakout pullback. I tried to jump in on this trade. After this candle closed, I put my entry one tick below here, actually below this original signal bar. I was a little conservative. So if I had jumped in earlier on this, after seeing this candle, put it right here, this candle would have filled me, would have just barely reached, but didn't hit my stop if I did take it. But I waited for this candle to close, then I put it one tick below, and as you can see, the trade left without me. It was right here, it never came back, and then would have turned out to be a pretty decent trade. Prices continue moving, so this is a missed trade, unfortunately. We have a new short, new low, first entry short, pulls back. We have a second entry short here. It's a pretty good signal bar for a second entry short, but it's above the EMA. It's a little risky. Coming down, I thought, here I should probably wait for a confirmation lower high. But lower high here looks like, look at, there's three dojis in a row. I don't like that. It just shows you that's indecision. So it could easily bounce right back up, especially if doji's right at the EMA. So it's telling you something. It's telling you there's a big tug of war happening with no clear bias. So I just decided I had to sit that one out. Prices continue moving up. It falls what I think is inside this yellow trading range. Excuse me, trading channel. There's some second entries here, but they're not good setups. I have one touch, two touch, three touch. Looks pretty good. I have one touch, two touch now, so I'm pretty confident we're in a trading range. Looks like it's kind of correcting a little bit. And at this point, this red trend line doesn't really matter now because we're broke out and it's something else in play. I also drew another channel here, one touch, two touch, but I wasn't going to give it too much respect just yet because I wasn't sure if this is going to actually have any kind of reaction up here. But it did look like it had one touch, two touch, three touch. So there was a possible channel moving down here, confirmed at the bottom, but not so much at the top. Prices continue moving. Then it comes up. Now it tests it. So this is actually a third touch. Because technically it's a fourth touch because you have one touch, two touch, but when it's reaching this far, I usually just count this as one or two touches, and then this would be a more confirmed touch of the downward channel. Prices continue moving down. It breaks out of this yellow channel, and it looks like it's trying to work itself back in. And here I see a new low, first entry short, second entry short. The second entry short is a good signal bar, but it closed above the EMA, and it's a little bit on a bullish bias. So I didn't really quite like that because this is the overall trend kind of pushing up. You're making higher lows every time. So it leads me to believe that this breakout might want to come up, at least test this. So maybe one push up, two push up. To say you're going to go short and the uptrend is played out is a little bit premature just because the uptrend still is gradually moving up. Looks like it would have worked though if you took short. And I see a new low here, first entry short, second entry short. Now this is a failed second entry short right here. The second entry short fails now. And I thought, okay, this failed second entry short is formed below the EMA. So it's a little bit risky. I wanted this to actually form above the EMA, then I feel a little bit more confident to go long. And I said, well, let's see what happens. I see this lower high. So this is kind of a subtle reaction. This is actually where I took my first trade. I thought that this was actually a trap for the longs because there's a new high here, first entry long, but you also see a new short, new low here, first entry short, second entry short. As soon as the second entry short fails, and this is a pretty decent bullish bar, I think a bunch of traders jumped on, went long here, flashed up if you waited for the confirmed failure. So when you waited for this candle, because this you still technically have a second entry short here, and even though this is a bullish candle, if the next candle flashes and keeps moving down, you don't have a failure. But when you see this, now you know you have a confirmed failure. And if you waited for this to close, I could see a bunch of bulls jumping on one tick above. And one tick above would have trapped everybody, then flashed immediately down. And flashed immediately down, it actually went all the way down to here, and it would stay down here, forming a very strong bearish bar. So I actually put my entry one tick below this guy. I got filled, and then on the next candle, I flashed down and I got my exit. And I tried to make sure I just got out before it hit the localized bottom. One more thing I'd like to point out is after the breakout, it made one attempt. Second attempt pushed back into this trading channel and it failed. So there's actually a lower high here. So I saw another confirmation to take this entry when it was looking like right here. And even though it pulled back, I set it back instead of putting one tick below here, which looks like it would have worked as well. Then prices continue moving down. Chops around, I see a new low here, first entry short, second entry short. Second entry short, I thought was probably a possible trade. It's a pretty good signal bar. It's far enough from the EMA. Well, actually, it bounced off the EMA. The body is showing very bearish, and there's enough room to the bottom. Unfortunately, I just wasn't aware to take this trade, or just wasn't ready, so I missed this trade. Prices continue down. It looks like there was just enough room for a 1 point scalp. Prices then chopped up. I saw a new low here. First entry short, second entry short. I also saw a hidden second entry long. There's a new high here. The first entry long pulls back, breaks below this guy, comes right back up. So it's like a first entry long, second entry long. Now there's a second entry short and a second entry long hidden. Even though the second bar went above the previous, it was kind of confusing. So I wasn't sure if this breakout tested the high, it was going to make a second attempt push up, or was this actually a failure and it's going to come back down. So this left me a little bit confused, and since it was confusing, it was just wait for a confirmation of either the second entry short or the second entry long. And it turned out to be a short, comes back down. You have a lower high here. This lower high is okay. It's confirmation of second entry short. You rejected by the EMA, and the candle closed kind of green though. Ideally, if it closed red, I would have felt confident to take the trade one tick below because it made a micro double bottom. Prices continue moving down. I see a failed second entry long. New high here, first entry long, second entry long, failure. Now, when this failed second entry long happened, is the first break of this channel came down, pushed down. Now, I was thinking it might make another leg up before it continued downwards. And by the time this candle closed, take the second entry long failure within the candle would have been to enter right here. So I think you would have had to enter on the engulfing bar, and I wasn't going to when this was happening. And when it closed, then it's like felt too late. Prices come back up. This is actually where I take my second trade. Now, this was very congested. The entry was too low because what happened, I saw a second entry short and a lower high. So that's a new low here, first entry short, second entry short. This is a terrible signal bar for second entry short, but I was playing off the rejection of the EMA. And I thought this was a lower high of this first entry long, second entry long, failure, and then a lower high. So I thought I had two things going for me. Unfortunately, taking the entry right here, I'm running into the possible bottom of this range. And in hindsight, it wasn't very clean, this lower high right here. And I should have just left it alone because this price is right here is also very congested. And of course, it comes back up. It causes me to hit my stop right here, hops around. If it didn't hit my stop here, this candle would have. Hops around even more. So now I'm clearly in a range, and I shouldn't have entered the trade at all, but At the time, I just didn't think it through enough. Prices move down, now it breaks up and over, comes up, tests this red channel another time now. So it's actually one touch, two touch, three touch, or one touch, two touch, another touch, another touch. So I'm looking for potential reason to go short. And I also saw a potential support right here off this blue line. First entry long, second entry long, right here. And then a second entry long failure. I'm thinking a second entry long failure right here. I actually waited and I took this and I chased it, which was a terrible idea because if I was supposed to take it one tick below here, on this candle, it would have given me my 1 point scalp. But when this flashed down and it held for a moment down here, I took one tick below this micro triple bottom. And you can see I entered right here. It made one tick down, came back up, made me super nervous, and then it stopped me out. So this is a bad trade, only mainly because I waited too long for the entry. And once this flashed like this, I should have just skipped it, or I should have had it ready, but I wasn't. On top of that, it's also a bad trade because I had two ticks. I gave it more room than it deserved. I should have just had one tick, especially on a bad entry. I should have just decided to either scuttle the trade because I had an opportunity here to try to scuttle the trade on this candle flash down, knowing that I had a terrible entry, but I didn't. I just hung out, which was a terrible idea, and it ended up punishing me. And of course, lo and behold, it punishes me, and then the next one flashes down. This would have filled me on my original entry, but my stop loss would have had to been above this guy. So I had to either keep it above here, but that's a large risk to reward, and definitely not something worth taking. In other words, this trade should never have happened. Prices continue moving down, drops down. I'm thinking it might come back and touch the other side of this red channel, but it doesn't. It just kind of chops around. I do see a new low, first entry short, second entry short. The second entry short is this inside bar. Ideally, the signal bar should have been more bearish, but this trigger bar was pretty decent. And then you actually have a lower high here, but this is kind of late in the day, so I wasn't too keen. On top of that, I just had my second loss. So I had one win, one loss, second loss. So I wasn't too eager to try to take another trade. I kind of want to make sure whenever I have two losses in a row, especially, I just kind of like step back and probably reassess. I'm probably getting tricked by the market. I'm not sharp. I'm not making good decisions. So I was already out of the trading mindset. I was just kind of observation mindset at that point. The prices continue moving down. Getting close to the end of the day. I do see a new high here. New high, first entry long, second entry long, but this is a terrible signal bar because it's closed below the EMA. It's also a little bit kind of too neutral. Prices can continue moving up, pops around, and it goes into the close. So overall, kind of a tricky day. It wasn't the most easiest for me. There wasn't too many trades I could point out for myself, and most of the action trading wise kind of happened in this area. Unfortunately, nothing here, and I would have had to have gotten a good entry here to kind of ride this down. So I did also miss this trade, which I think was a pretty decent setup, but unfortunately I missed that trade. So hopefully that was helpful.